Glam Girls, welcome back to my channel. It's Chelsea, where we talk about all things glam and all things girly. So today, y'all, Sonia was like, I'm going to continue blessing y'all with all of my amazing brushes. So today I will be sharing with you her new launch. This is her Lotus set. I'm sorry my brushes are dirty. I did use them today. I cannot wait to not only share with you this new collection, but I'm also going to be comparing it to her latest Fusion set launch. And I thought the timing was perfect to do a comparison between the two because her Lotus set is launching on July 14th and the restock of the Fusion set is going to be available July 14th. So if you are interested in both, you're like, I'm only going to get one, which one should I get? Or I want to get both and I just want to make sure it's worth getting both, then this is the video for you. Definitely want to stay tuned till the end of the video to hear my thoughts, but I definitely want to say thank you so much for clicking on my video and spending some time with me today. If you are new, I'd love for you to consider subscribing and joining the Glam Girl Squad, and let's get right into this video. So like I said, this is Sonia's newest and latest launch. This is the Lotus set. It is going to be available on Beautylicious website on Wednesday, July the 14th. It will launch at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time and 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It will retail for $215 USD, and it is a limited edition. So let's go over some details about the brushes. Let's take a look at this handle. So first of all, look at this beautiful gradient of dark burgundy that is sprinkled with golden sparkles. Can you all see that? Isn't that just stunning? And then this dark burgundy is going to shift to a purple, and then it's going to shift to a Sakura pink, and then white with that golden sparkle just ever so lightly just dusted along the handle. It's so gorgeous. This ferrule is going to be brass, and from what she said, a lot of times when ferrules are brass, you don't ever see them in color, but she was able to work with just some crafted and just artistic artisans, and they were able to make this brass ferrule purple. She wanted to create this particular launch with some life and some vibrancy to kind of commemorate us being able to kind of gather around again, because since 2020, we haven't been able to congregate like we normally have been, you know, due to, you know what it is. And so she wanted to create something that would bring life, that would make people happy, that would just kind of commemorate this kind of coming back of community that we're able to have. And so she, of course, drew inspiration from the Lotus flower, and here they are. So this is the worker brush, and this is the exact same type of worker brush that she already has in her collection. She didn't change anything about this brush. The only thing that she changed about this brush is going to be the handle and the ferrule. Next, we have 3 new brushes that are not already in her collection. So we have her base brush here. Then we have the detail brush. And then lastly, we have the soft definer brush. And then lastly, we have these 2 brushes here, which are already a part of her collection, but she's tweaked them a bit so that they can be even more user-friendly and all around more flexible in terms of its usage. So we have here her cheek brush, and then lastly, the builder. So let's start off with the complexion. So I'm going in with her base brush, and I'm comparing it to the jumbo base brush from her Fusion series. So kind of taking a look at both of these brushes. Obviously in shape, they are definitely different. The only similarity that I see between the 2 brushes is that the ferrule is a little more pinched for both, but of course the shape of these brushes completely different. And also their density is different. So both of these brush hairs are going to be composed of Sokoho goat hair and synthetic fibers, and both of them are going to be suitable for cream foundation. Looking more specifically at the base brush, the hair length is going to be 18 millimeters. The total brush length is going to be 163 millimeters. And the ferrule is going to be 22 millimeters. She specifically says that this brush is going to be used for foundation and sculpting. And just so you know, I have done a dedicated video on the Fusion series, so I'm not going to go into every detail of each one of these brushes. Definitely take a look at that. But as you can see, just from observing, the brush hairs are going to be similar in length on the sides, but they're definitely shorter in the middle. And their densities are a little bit different. So when I was going in with the base brush and blending that into the skin, I think it blended the foundation very well. I liked that I could pounce the brush on the face, and then I can also blend the brush on the face as well. It blended in the product. I did notice that it took a little bit more blending. There were times where if I blend it this way, I did see very fine streaks in the initial blend of the foundation with the base brush. So after, you know, blending it in and then blending in circular motions, I was able to blend the foundation in effortlessly. And I felt like it did an amazing job. When comparing it to the jumbo base brush, this brush just blends foundation like that. Because it's so big and because the hairs are all the same length, you literally can just pounce your foundation in and it blends like a dream. You can also buff it if you want to, blends like a dream as well. But I think because of the overall shape, it just blends it just effortlessly. There's a slight slant to this brush, and so that makes for a very easy blend into the skin. So it's not that the base brush doesn't blend the foundation well, just because of the differences in their shape and the density of the brushes, you're just gonna get a faster blend with the jumbo base compared to the base. I also will use this brush to blend in a contour if I'm doing just like a very quick contour, especially with like cream contour, cream bronzer. This brush can be used for that as well, just like this brush can too. And we'll see this brush in action, blending in cream bronzer a little bit later. But so far, I like both of these brushes for blending in foundation. If I had to choose, because, you know, I want to make this informative, I would definitely reach for the jumbo base a little bit more than I would reach for the base, simply because this blends the product in faster, and I love the slight angle to it, and just, like I said, the effortless and quick blend that this brush does provide. But if this brush were dirty and I'm like, I want to use one of Sonia's brushes, or I still want to use a very good quality brush, I have no problem using that one. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of my own perspective on the two. So with concealer in the Lotus set, there is no brush that I personally would use to blend in concealer. I did look at the worker brush and I was like, you know, if I had to, I guess I could blend out the concealer with it. But this one I prefer for the eyes, so I didn't use it to blend out the concealer because I honestly wouldn't use it to blend out concealer. However, from the Fusion set, we have two brushes that we could use for concealer. We have the soft concealer and we also have the jumbo concealer. So today I did go in with the soft concealer to blend it out. I love this brush for blending out my concealer because it's very soft. It doesn't tug on my skin on the under eyes. It does a really good job of blending out the product just as well. And I have used the jumbo concealer to blend out product under the eye and around the nose. It does basically just as good of a job as the soft concealer, but I just like the softness of this brush a little bit more than the jumbo concealer. So just to give you my own personal take, especially after using these brushes for a while, I really do reach for the soft concealer to blend out concealer under the eye and down the T-zone. For powder in either set, there was not a brush that I personally would use to apply powder under the eye, so that's why I didn't show it here. Just to give you an idea of brushes that I do like, I either reach for this Surratt brush right here. I want to say this is their highlighting brush to blend out concealer under the eye, or I reach for my absolute favorite brush, which is this Wayne Goss airbrush brush. I love how like soft and flat it is. So those are the type of brushes that I prefer to use to set powder under the eye. So neither set provided that for me, and that's okay. I'm not sweating it. It ain't nothing to hold against either set. So let's go on to cream bronzer. So I went in with the base brush because Sonia said this one can be used for sculpting, and I definitely found it very useful, very good at applying the cream bronzer and then also blending it into the hairline and also chiseling out the chin. I really enjoyed how it blended, and initially I was like, is this going to just apply the product but not blend it too well? But it actually did a really good job of blending it. And also what I liked about this brush, when I really wanted to kind of buff the cream bronzer into the skin, I actually used the sides of the hairs, because Sonia said because of the shape and the fan shape of this brush, you can use the longer edges to do more blending, and that's what I did, and I was like, Sonia knows what she's doing. So I applied the cream bronzer this way, and then I turned it over here and just blended it, and it did a phenomenal job doing so. So I definitely, honestly, I would probably use this brush more for sculpting and bronzing than I would use for foundation, just because of how well it applied. I really like the shape of it and the contours of the cheeks. And like I said, I can apply it and blend it all in one. For this side, I went in with the mini base brush from the Fusion set. And this is the brush that I honestly was using for cream bronzer and cream contour prior to this Lotus set. This just fits perfectly in the hollows of the cheek. Of course, because the brush hairs are circular, you can go in and of course blend it that way. I mean, it is by far one of my favorite brushes to apply cream bronzer and contour. Like, I love this brush. I would say, because Sonia does sell the brushes from the Fusion set individually, that if you just get this one, it is worth your money, because you can actually use it to blend out foundation across the face. I've done it. It takes a little longer, but it can be done. You can use it to apply cream bronzer. You can use it to apply cream blush. You can use it to apply cream highlight. Like, this is the literal workhorse brush of this entire, of both of these sets. Like, this brush is just bomb. So I love, love, love this one. But I think both brushes applied the cream bronzer effortlessly. It looks beautiful on both sides. Both sides look blended in my opinion. So once again, can't go wrong with either one of these brushes for sculpting and bronzing, especially with cream products. So with the base brush, I not only used it to sculpt out the cheeks, but I actually used it to do my nose contour. And it worked really good, especially for this not being like the smallest brush. I felt like it fit very nicely on the sides of my nose and down the edges of my nose. And I was actually able to arc it up into the socket of the eye. And it did an amazing job for that as well. So I think this brush is amazing for sculpting. And like I mentioned before, I probably would continue to use this brush primarily for sculpting the face, and then as a foundation brush as needed. Now let's go on to cheek products. So I wanted to go in with the next brush in the Lotus set, and this is her cheek brush. Now, this brush is, if I could say, a derivative of her Cheek Pro brush. And so let's take a look at this. So here we have the two brushes side by side, and I have washed both of these brushes. And just as a kind of a rule of thumb, Sonia said it is best to wash the brushes from the Lotus set first prior to using them, so that they can really fan out and you get the full benefit of the brush and its usage. So this cheek brush is going to be the undyed version of this current Cheek Pro brush. And the shape is similar, but it comes more to an airiness. So as you can see, the cheek brush does flare out a little bit more than the Cheek Pro brush. The Cheek Pro brush kind of tapers in a little bit more. And so the width of it is not as wide. And this one does have a more airy application to the face. Just to give you some details about this brush, the hair length is going to be 30 millimeters. The total brush length is going to be 165 millimeters. And the ferrule is going to be 16 by 10 millimeters. Like Sonia said, this brush can be used for blush, contour, highlight, and bronzer. And you can use this brush for cream and powder products. So I went in with a cream blush first because I wanted to see how well it applied it to the skin. And I just went and pounced the blush, I want to say blush, onto the skin, blended in the product perfectly. It picked up a really good amount of the product to where I just barely had to tap the brush in the cream blush, and it applied the product very well and also blended it extremely well. I really enjoyed this. Like, her Cheek Pro brush is by far one of my favorite cheek brushes. So now that I have two of them, I'm like, amen. I love these brushes. And then for the other cheek, just to show you this brush in action, I went in with her classic base brush from the Fusion set. And I went on ahead and applied the cream product as well. This brush can be used for cream products, and so it works just as well. In comparing these two, the classic base is definitely more dense Then the cheek brush, this one, like I said, has more of an airiness to it. This one definitely is more dense. And as you can see from the ferrules, the ferrule on the cheek brush is pinched, which helps to give it that airy flare, whereas the ferrule of the classic base brush is not pinched, it is more circular, so it'll hold the hairs together more compactly, making it more of a dense brush. However, it did apply the cream blush very well, blended it effortlessly. So I think for both of these products, in applying cream products, it works well. I also would use the classic base brush for foundation application. Obviously, most foundations are going to be cream or liquid, so this brush really does work for really any cream product that you would want to apply to the face. But I really enjoyed this cheek brush. So I wanted to top the cream blush with a powder blush, just to once again get a feel for these brushes. So I went in with the detail brush. So Sonia says that this detail brush is the baby of the Face Pro brush. Now I don't have that brush, but she does have a picture of the two side by side on her blog, and this is much smaller than the Face Pro brush. But as you can see, it's just a cute little petite type of angled brush. It does have an airiness to it as well, so that you can apply product to the face but also blend it out. The hair length of this brush is going to be 28 millimeters. The total brush length is 173 millimeters. The ferrule is going to be 14 by 7.5 millimeters. And the material of the hairs is going to be brown dyed and undyed Psychoho Goat. I didn't mention the hair on the cheek brush, and so this is just undyed Psychoho Goat hairs. Sonia says that you can use this detail brush for blush, contour, highlight, and it is only for powder products. I love the way it fits. I love angled brushes for blush. I also, like I had mentioned before, I like this one, but for the longest, I only use an angled brush. The one that I use, I still have it, is this one by Morphe. This is the E4 brush, and I still have it because I just love it. But as you can see, the angle of the two is very similar. And I stuck with that brush for so long because I love how you can just fit the angled brush onto the cheek and apply your blush however you want to apply it. So when I saw this shape, I was like, yes, this is gonna be beautiful for a blush because I just love them. And then I also used this brush to apply highlighter because she said that we could do it. Worked beautifully. I just took it and pounced the highlighter onto the C arc of the eye. I put it along my T-zone, and it was beautiful. So I really enjoyed this. Now onto the eyes. So when it comes to the eyes, the Fusion set does not have any designated brushes for the eyes, whereas this Lotus set does. If you wanted to do like a one and done type of eye look, you could go in with the soft concealer and the jumbo concealer brushes to do like a quick eye look. I don't take that away from these brushes, and you definitely could do that. But for me and the way that I like to do my makeup, I wouldn't rely on those brushes to do a complete eye look. So for the Lotus set, for the eyes, she has designated the worker brush, the soft definer brush, and then the builder brush. So I felt like I really could do a full eye look with these brushes, and that's what we did today. So I started out with a soft definer brush, and I used this brush to apply my transition color and also my crease color. And it's so weird because it's not weird, but it's so unique, I'll say that, because this soft definer brush looks so tiny, but it actually is like a workhorse of a brush in the sense of it really can get the job done. And I feel like this brush is like, don't underestimate me. I might be small, but I'm mighty. And I definitely feel like that is like the coined phrase for this brush. I'm small, but I'm mighty. So the hair length of this brush is only 12 millimeters. The total brush length is 152 millimeters. The ferrule is 5 millimeters, and the hairs are dyed Psychoho Goat hair. And this brush, like I said, is used for eyeshadow, or was created for eyeshadow. So I went in first with my transition color, then with the crease color. I was able to blend both of those colors pretty well together. Like I said, for the size of the brush, I initially was like, how well is this gonna blend? And it did a really good job for its size. If I were in a pinch and I only had these 3 brushes to work with, I definitely could get the definition that I wanted. I could also get the detail that I want with this brush. Now, at some point, I will admit, I got really tired of blending with this brush, like my hand got tired. So I did go in with Sonia's Blender Pro brush, and I went in to blend out the edges with this brush because this is my favorite brush to use when I want to go ahead and blend the transition and the crease color together. And just to show you the differences between the two, as you can see, the Blender Pro, of course, is going to be larger than the soft definer brush, but the actual shape of the two is quite similar. And so that's why they both do work as blending brushes. After using the soft definer brush, I went in with the worker brush, and I don't have the worker brush from her original set, but I do have this jumbo blender brush, which reminds me of the worker brush. So as you can see, this is the jumbo blender. They do have similar shapes and a similar size to them. The jumbo blender is going to be just a little bit wider than the worker brush, but I really like this brush for applying eyeshadow over the eye, especially when it comes to my shimmers. So some details about the worker brush: the brush hair length is 15 millimeters. The total brush length is 155 millimeters. The ferrule is 10 by 7 millimeters, and the hairs are going to be Psycho Goat. Sonia says that this brush can be used for eyeshadow and concealer, and you can use this for cream and powder products. And like I mentioned earlier, I did think to use this brush for concealer, but because it was so small, I knew it wasn't going to be a brush that I would realistically use for concealer. However, now that I'm thinking about it, I should have used it so you all could have seen it, so I do apologize for that. But do know that you can use this worker brush for concealer, and so you're able to, once again, use this brush set for a full face of makeup for the most part. But I know for me, I would definitely use this for eyeshadow primarily. So I really liked how this applied my eyeshadow over the eye. It did a phenomenal job of doing so. And I like that this brush can be used for blending. So the rounded shape, the rounded top shape of the hairs allows for you to not only pack on the product on the eyes, but then you could actually go in and blend the edges. And so I actually did go in and blend the edges of my eyeshadow with this brush. And I was like, oh, I didn't even have to reach for my Blender Pro because I could have used this one. So I was really happy about that too, that it's not just for applying eyeshadow to the eye like a traditional shader brush. And then lastly, I went in with the builder brush to apply the eyeshadow to the inner corner of the eye. And this brush is going to be more of like your traditional shader brush. So some details about this one: the hairs are going to be 10 millimeters in length. The total brush length is going to be 150 millimeters. The ferrule is going to be 10 by 5 millimeters. And the material is Psycho Goat hair. She says use this brush with any type of eyeshadow formula, your shimmers, your mattes, creams, and powders. So this one applied my shimmer perfectly. I mean, it just laid it down so smoothly. And also, because of the shape of the tip of the hairs, I also can blend in eyeshadow as well with this particular brush. I really enjoyed all 3 of these eyeshadow brushes. I think she did an amazing job picking 3 brushes that you really can complete a eye look with. And she also said with this whole set, she wanted to create brushes that you can create simple looks with, or brushes that you can create a dramatic look. I think my eye, although it's not the most dramatic, it's definitely more dramatic than, you know, a simple just kind of light color in the transition and then a lighter shimmer on the eye. So I do think you can get a dramatic look with your eyes with these brushes. To finish off the lower lash line, I went back in with the soft detailer brush and just ran my eyeshadow along the lower lash line. And then I went in with the worker brush to actually blend out the eyeshadow on the lower lash line, and it did so very well. And then to apply the inner corner highlight, I went back in with a detailer brush and applied the inner corner highlight and the eyeshadow right along here, and my eye look was done. And I was like, I really am happy with these brushes. So all in all, I I'm very happy with the Lotus set. I am so thankful that I was sent these brushes. I meant to say this in the beginning, and I'm so sorry. I got just too excited about this, but thank you to Beautylish and Sonia G for sending me this Lotus set. I'm so thankful and appreciative to have this opportunity to share these brushes with you and to also use them. I really enjoyed the Lotus set. Very happy that I have it. And I did want to do just some other comparisons of the other Sonia G brushes that I have, just in case you have those and you just want to see what do they look like with them. So just quickly, so quickly, here we have a comparison of the Worker brush with the Worker 2 brush. And as you can see, the shape of the brushes, once again, is quite similar, but the Worker 2 brush is a little bit bigger. And also the hair length on the Worker brush from the Lotus set is going to be longer than the hair length on the Worker 2 brush. So the Worker 2 brush is going to be a little bit more dense than the Worker brush from the Lotus set. Then I wanted to compare the soft definer brush with this mini booster brush. So as you can see, the mini booster brush is a little bit wider in its size than the soft definer. And also the hairs on the mini booster is going to be longer than the hairs on the soft definer brush, but they do have a similar shape and the sizes are a little bit similar as well. The mini booster, of course, is going to be a little bit wider, but I have used the mini booster to apply eyeshadow on the lower lash line and for some detailed work as well. It's just that the soft definer is going to give you even more detailed work, but both of these brushes do work well for that detailed work, and they both do also blend the eyeshadow as well. If you were interested in comparing Sonia's soft shader to the builder, you can take a look at these two. As you can see, the soft shader, the hairs are longer and not as densely packed as the builder. Also, the shape of the soft shader is a little more rounded, whereas the shape of the builder is a little bit more flat across the top. I think the difference between the soft shader and the builder is that the soft shader does have more of a flexible hair, so you can use it more like a blender brush than you would use for the builder brush. And then lastly, I wanted to compare Sonia's mini cheek brush to the detailer brush. And as you can see, although the hairs are very similar in terms of what they look like, of course the shape of the hairs is going to be different. This one is going to be, of course, angled. This one is not. And this one, it does have more of like an airy, fluffy feel to it versus the mini cheek brush. And of course, looking at them from the side, the cheek brush is going to be wider as well. So those are the other Sonia G brushes that I think look similar to the Lotus set, that if you had them, you might just want to see them in action. And what I do like about this Lotus set is that there's only one direct brush in this particular set that she already has in her collection. I like that the other 5 brushes are new brushes, or if it's not technically new, it's a different variation of it, so you can get a different function from it. So we come down to the burning question. Which set do you need? Do you need just the Lotus set, just the Fusion set, or do you need both? Or do you need neither? And so I'm gonna talk from my perspective first. So for me, there is a place for both. I actually think the Lotus set is very complementary to the Fusion set, simply because we have eye brushes in this set. So like I mentioned before, we don't have eye brushes, or if I could say actual definitive eye brushes in the Fusion set. So I think this Lotus set is a really good complement to the Fusion set. Also, with this base brush, like I mentioned before, I'm probably going to use this more as an actual sculpting brush more than I would use it for foundation. So for me, I can add it to the Fusion set, and now I have like a designated sculpting brush. Whereas with the jumbo base brush and the classic base brush, I can use those for foundation, or like I did today, I can use the classic base brush to apply cream blush if my other brushes are dirty. So for me, I would use both of these for blush and highlight. It just depends on which one I reach for, and that's that. Whereas with the Fusion set, when it comes to actual like powder products, there's not one brush that I would use over one of these brushes in the Lotus set for powder blush. Like I mentioned earlier, I definitely would use the classic base brush to apply cream blush. And I would use it if I were in a pinch, but I most prefer these fluffier brushes for my powder blush. Even for a powder bronzer, if I needed to, I would use both of these for bronzer as well. So once again, I think we're complementing the Fusion set with this Lotus set. And then, of course, like I mentioned a billion times, these are the eye brushes that the Fusion set doesn't have. So I personally do think both of these brush sets are complementary to each other. And if you want to get both, I do not think you're gonna waste your money by getting both, because I do think you will find a purpose for both. Now, if you had to choose one, Chelsea, I cannot buy both. I can only buy one. Which one do you think I should get? If you want a set for full face, go with Lotus. You've got foundation, bronzer, blush, highlight, concealer, eyeshadow, the whole shebang. The full face is with the Lotus set. However, if you're like, I really need some good face brushes, I don't really, you know, I got eye brushes, I got powder brushes, but I just really need some good, solid face brushes for my cream products, Fusion is your winner. Not saying you can't get it with here, but you just have a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more dimension that you're gonna get with these Fusion brushes for the face, for powder and cream products, than you will get with the Lotus set. So that's how I think you should determine if you need both or if you can find a purpose for both in your collection. So I hope that this video was helpful. Leave a comment down below letting me know if you are interested in both of these brush sets or if you're only interested in one. Let me know if there are any other questions that I did not answer for you in this video. And if you've made it to this point in the video and you have yet to subscribe to my channel, I'd love for you to consider subscribing and joining the Glam Girl Squad. And guys, that is it. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope to see you in my very next video. Bye, guys.